Hi guys and welcome to Ancient Greece Reloaded. Today we're gonna talk about the Underworld. As all of you can imagine, the Underworld is pretty much the place where all mortals would end up going once they died. But before we continue, let us focus on three terms that cause a lot of confusion, namely Hades, Pluto, not to be confused with Plutus, who is the god of wealth, and Tartarus. In essence, every time somebody would use the terms Hades or Pluto, in both cases he or she referred to the Olympian god that ruled over the underworld. Okay, you may wonder, where is the confusion anyway? Here is the thing, because in ancient Greek scripts you will find expressions like, let us say, Achilles residing in Hades. Okay, since Hades is the god that rules over the underworld, how can somebody reside in him? Here's the thing, that if you throw in some ancient Greek grammar, Hades also means the house of Hades, consequently indirectly implying the underworld. Nevertheless, as a rule of thumb, keep in mind this, that when you see terms Hades and Pluto, it means or it refers to the ancient Greek god that ruled over the underworld. Now, how did ancient Greeks actually call the underworld? Simple, the underworld, or the world beneath, in Greek okato cosmos. Regarding Tartarus, believe it or not, originally Tartarus was a god. His mother was Gaia, and depending on the source, his father was either Ether, Chaos, or Hades. But as time passed by, Tartarus became synonymous with the deepest depths of the underworld, in which all bad souls would end up going so as to be tortured for all eternity. Having clarified these terms, let us move to the actual meat of today's video. So how did this entire process of the underworld actually work? If a person would die, then the people around him or his family members would have to put a coin on his eyes, one for each eye, something that we have also seen in the movie Troy of 2004. So why did ancient Greeks do this? Because they believed that a soul would use these coins to pay the ferryman so as for him to take them to the other side of the underworld. So once somebody died, god Hermes appeared before the soul so as to guide it through the underworld. So the soul's first stop was the ferryman. There the soul would use the coins so as for the ferryman to take the soul over the river called Acheron to the other side of the underworld. If the soul would have no coins to pay the ferryman, then the soul would be forced to walk at the banks of the river for all eternity without being able to find peace. Before we continue, let us focus on a guy called Lucian, in Greek Lucianos, who in his Dialogues of the Dead wrote a story about a cynic philosopher called Menippus. The core of the story is that Menippus ended up before the ferryman being completely broke and without having a single dime on him to pay the ferryman to take him to the other side. So the ferryman, obviously enough, refused. So Menippus turned around towards Hermes and asked him, as a matter of fact told him, to get him back to the world of the living. Since the ferryman, who by the way is called Charon, refused to take Menippus to the other side. By doing so, Hermes basically meant that he would have to resurrect Menippus, which was a no-go. Consequently, a crazy dialogue between these three occurred, in which eventually Hermes convinced Charon to take Menippus to the other side. And while Charon was doing this, Menippus ended up trash-talking Charon and the other souls on the boat, who pretty much were weeping for the wealth that they have left behind in the worlds of the living. Okay, let's go back to our topic. Once on the other side, the souls, next stop would be Kerberos, the three-headed dog and guardian of the underworld. Kerberos' mission pretty much was straightforward. No living soul was allowed to enter the underworld, while no dead soul was allowed to exit it. By the way guys, sometimes Kerberos did a crappy job because some heroes were actually able to waltz in and out from the underworld as they saw fit. For example, Odysseus, Hercules, or even Orpheus. By the way guys, Kerberos was actually the second guardian of the underworld. The original guardian was a monster called Kampe, in Greek Kampi, that had the upper body of a man, the lower body of a snake or dragon, and a tail that resembles the one of a scorpion. Eventually Kampe was killed off by Zeus when Zeus went down to the underworld so as to free the Cyclops and to assist him during the Titanomachy, the famous war between Titans versus God. So, once Kerberos was done with his face control, the soul's next stop were the famous three judges of the underworld. The three judges were Rhadamanthus, in Greek Rhadamanthys, who was the judge of the souls coming from Asia. The second judge, called Aekos, in Greek Eakos, was the judge of the souls coming from Europe. The third judge was Minos, and he would have a decisive vote in case of a dispute between the two previous judges. Unfortunately for the soul, everything was revealed before the eyes of the judges. As a matter of fact, even every little dirty secret was visible. Once the process was done, judgment was carried out. In essence, three possible outcomes were available to the soul. Outcome 1. The Elysium Fields, or Elysium, in Greek Elysia Pedia. The Elysium Fields were practically the best outcome that a soul could get. So, how would a soul get this outcome? Either if the soul lived a virtuous life, if he or she used to be a great hero that accomplished great deeds, or, believe it or not, if the soul had the right connections up in Mount Olympus. In this case, the soul would get the Elysium Fields. Once there, the soul would drink the water from a river or a fountain depending on the source, and all memories of its past life would be erased. Afterwards, the soul would attain eternal bliss and live happy for all eternity. If by any chance you guys study the occult, this process is known as the Potion of Oblivion. Outcome number 2. Tartarus. In this case, it was the worst outcome that could happen to the soul. So, if you sucked in your previous life or lived a bad life or even performed very bad deeds that would anger the gods, then your soul would end up in the deepest depths of the underworld, namely Tartarus. And once in Tartarus, your soul would be damned and be tortured for all eternity. For instance, Sisyphus was punished to roll a huge rock up to the top of a mountain, and once there he would have to repeat the entire process all over again, almost immediately, and all that for all eternity. Outcome number 3. The in-between. In this case, your soul was not bad enough to end up in Tartarus, nor good enough to be blessed with Elysium. So, in this case, your soul would end up somewhere around the area of the Vale of the Morning. There, your soul would be something like a shadow of its former self, and the soul would also mourn the fact that it does not belong to the world of the living anymore. No peace of mind whatsoever. Before we conclude with today's video, we would like to address one potential question. Has there ever been a case in which a mortal could avoid the underworld at all? Believe it or not, guys, the answer to this question is yes, there have been a few exceptions. To be more precise, one of the following two exceptions could be applied. Exception 1. Receiving the second highest honor by the god. I repeat, the second highest. So how did this work? If you favored by a god that much, or if you performed such great deeds in your life, or if in general, believe it or not, a god felt like it, then you would be taken up to the skies and become or turned into a constellation among the stars. Such were the cases of Orion, the Pleiades, Canis Major, Canis Minor, Andromeda, etc. Exception number 2. Receiving the highest or greatest honor by the gods. In this case, you would be taken up to Mount Olympus, being offered nectar and ambrosia, hence becoming an immortal. Think of it like becoming something like a god. You would get your own castle, and if you were liked that much by the gods, you would even get married to a goddess. Such was the case with Hercules or Heracles, who, when he was about to die, he was taken up to Mount Olympus. There he was offered ambrosia and nectar, hence becoming immortal, and even got married to Hebe, the goddess of youth. This also explains why Hercules was worshipped in many parts of ancient Greece as a god. Okay guys, this concludes our video in which we talked about the underworld. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below and we will reply to them. Also, if you would like to further explore the topics that we depicted during our video, then visit our website ancientgreecereloaded.com. In there, we address all issues in more depth. Moreover, in the video description below, we have included all of our links to get in touch with us and our social media. Finally, support our project of Ancient Greece Reloaded by liking our video and by subscribing to our channel. It takes only a couple of seconds for you, but it would mean a lot to us. Thanks for watching and stay tuned guys for our upcoming videos.